taking you to the end of the hour. That is Nico Case with Man. Thank you again to Amanda Shires for being my guest on the show today. Thank you also to World Cafe senior producer Kimberly Junot for her work on that session. You can find World Cafe on social media at World Cafe on Instagram. Give us a follow. And thank you so much to our affiliate stations across the country who bring this show to you, including Arizona Public Radio. We produce this show at WXPN at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I'm Raina Duras. Thanks for listening to World Cafe from NPR.
World Cafe is supported by Luminescence Foundation. Luminescence Foundation is dedicated to shedding light on neurological research focused on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases and supporting land conservation initiatives. And by the Lemelson Foundation, working to harness the power of invention and innovation to accelerate climate action and improve lives around the world. Learn more at lemelson.org.
This is 88.5 WXPN HD1 Philadelphia, 88.7 WXPH HD1 Middletown, 91.9 WXPJ HD1 Hackettstown, 90.5 WKHS Wharton, and streaming at xpn.org. Member-supported radio from the University of Pennsylvania.
Our guest tonight on Amazon Country is author Alison Bechdel. Like me, many Amazon Country listeners first knew Bechdel through her comic strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, where we followed the lives of a group of lesbian friends through its 25 years of syndication in gay, feminist, and alternative publications from 1983 to 2008. In 2006, the wider world became aware of Bechdel's work when she published her first memoir, Fun Home, a family tragicomic. The critically acclaimed book explores her childhood in rural Pennsylvania, her coming out story, and revelations about her father's closeted bisexuality and eventual suicide. Fun Home was a finalist for a National Book Critics Circle Award, and it's been adapted into a musical by the playwright Lisa Kron and the composer Jeanine Tesori. It opened on Broadway in April of 2015 to extremely positive reviews and swept the Tonys this year, winning 5 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. Bechdel has described her work as preoccupied with the overlap of the political and the personal spheres, the relationship of the self to the world outside. Her 2012 memoir, Are You My Mother?, a comic drama, delved into not just her relationship with her mother, but the theories of 20th century British psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott. Alison's comics have appeared in The New Yorker, Slate, the New York Times Book Review, and many other publications. She won a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2012, and in 2014 was named a MacArthur Fellow. She lives in Vermont and joined us tonight by phone. Alison Bechdel, welcome to Amazon Country.
Thank you, Deb. Great to be here.
Many of us have known about your work for a long time and really felt ourselves reflected in Dykes to Watch Out For. I mean, I came out in 1985, so you know, the span of that comic being syndicated from 83 to 2008 really spans, you know, my adult life as a lesbian. And I'm curious how you feel in the place you are now with so much mainstream attention, having spent so much of your professional life in kind of on the margins, reflecting our subculture through the comic strip.
That's a very good question. I feel like I'm still kind of adjusting to that shift. It's been very odd. I mean, until relatively recently, until my book Fun Home came out in 2006, I was squarely in the margins of the culture and just really reaching a very small audience, a lovely, loyal audience, but a very small audience. So it's been kind of weird. Like, that's how I forged my identity. I was like this outsider person trying to get recognition, trying to get visibility, trying to get into the... Well, you know, I actually wasn't trying to get into the mainstream. I had kind of given up on the mainstream, or never was really interested in the mainstream because it Kate Clinton has that great line about, I can't remember it now, but something about how the mainstream is shallow, you know. Then the tributaries are where the depth is. So I was kind of happy being in a tributary for many years.
So now that you are in the full, you know, if we're going to follow the Kate Clinton analogy, you know, from the tributary stepping into, you know, the full flow of mainstream culture, is it a feeling of, you talk a lot in your memoirs about your desire for attention. I mean, you deal with it especially in Are You My Mother, about, you know, your need for recognition. And so having achieved it, I mean, with great reviews in the New York Times for the play, for a lot of recognition for both of your memoirs, does it leave you feeling some sense of, wow, finally made it, or does it just feed the need to, you know, continue on?
You know, it actually does sort of fill that bottomless need. I actually feel like I could do with a little less recognition lately. I'm just like so sick of myself and sick of talking about myself. Sorry, that's not a good way to go into an interview, but I've been doing so many interviews. It's like I almost feel like I have to start making up stuff because I can't just keep repeating the same old things, but the same old things are still true, so don't worry, I won't make up any lies.
Well, as someone who has chosen memoir, well, I would say not just memoir as your format, but I really feel like there's a confessional line from Dykes to Watch Out For, which I'm sure was fictionalized to some aspect, to many respects, but having just finished Are You My Mother and seeing the representation of one of the partners you talk about in the book, Eloise, she looked an awful lot like a character from Dykes to Watch Out For. So I guess there's two questions I have. How much did you draw on your own friends for Dykes to Watch Out For? And is there a line from the way that you were expressing a part of yourself through the character of Mo in Dykes to Watch Out For, and a line that then leads to the two very revealing memoirs that you've published since?
Yes, that's very perceptive of you. I don't, you know, not everyone who reads my memoirs has read the comic strip. That's a weird thing to me, too. Like, most people now know, you know, Fun Home. And only younger queer people are also reading my Dykes to Watch Out For strips, like in their gender studies classes at college, which is so bizarre. But it's interesting that you made that note, because that makes me happy. Yes, Dykes to Watch Out For was never explicitly autobiographical. You know, it wasn't about my actual real life. But yeah, I don't. It's funny because I always say no, I didn't base those characters on real people. But now that you mention it, yes, my character Harriet in Dykes to Watch Out For was drawn in a very general way. She resembled my girlfriend at the time. Eloise, as I call her in my memoir, Are You My Mother? And her appearance and her job really the only things that I was stealing. All the stories that she showed up in were fictional; they were all made up. But and for the most part, I made up those stories. But sometimes things would happen in my community or in my friendships, and I would sneak little versions of them into the comic strip. More and more as I went on, because I found myself really drawn to that kind of material. There's something about things that really happen for me that you can't make it up. You know, there's just something more powerful, more raw and immediate about something that really happened. So I did start sneaking material from my real life into Dykes to Watch Out For, but I have this sort of fear, a simultaneous fear and hope that someday someone will like go in there and connect the dots.
Someone from your life?
Between my real life and the stories of the comic strip, but we won't talk about that right now.
Well, I also, having looked back at some of those strips, am really struck by how much you represented the times we were in. So whether it was, ACT UP demonstrations or political references to who was president at the time. And so it is interesting to hear you say that those strips are now, studied in some college, academic context, because it is almost like a time capsule, both for the dyke culture. Dyke isn't even maybe it's having a resurgence, but it's not a word I hear younger lesbians use much, and it was a very powerful word for our generation. So having that word on the spine of books, was a very powerful thing. So during your hiatus, what you thought was just a sabbatical, had you been brewing the idea of Fun Home for a while, and what was that process like?
Well, I actually wrote Fun Home while I was still doing the comic strip. I started working on this memoir about my father in 1999, and it turned into the book now known as Fun Home. And this was a very personal story I had felt an increasing need to tell. But I hadn't done it before because in some ways I didn't think I could. It would have revealed all these family secrets, like the fact that my father had had affairs with other men and boys when I was a kid. I didn't find this out until I came out to my parents when I was 19, when I was in college. And after that coming out, that sort of mutual coming out, my father died. He was hit by a truck, and my family pretty much understands that as a suicide. So this was a very intense period of my life, just a very short period of time when I was 19, between when I came out and when my dad died. It was just it had remained a sort of confusing nut for me in my psyche. I've been thinking about it a lot in therapy and talking about it a lot to friends. I really felt like it was a story I wanted to publish. So I did. I sort of geared up to do this very different kind of project, this autobiographical project that would be book length, very different from my little weekly installments of the comic strip. And from 1999 to 2005, I sort of made that my main job, and my comic strip became my sub job. My I don't know. I can't keep track which is my day job and which is my other job. But my real passion became for this autobiographical work. So then Fun Home came out, and it was actually very successful, fortunately for me, because I got to keep on doing comics.
And the fact that Fun Home has become a musical is just beyond miraculous. So can you talk about how it came to be? And I've read that you turned over creative control to composer Jeanine Tesori and lyricist Lisa Kron, and I cannot imagine the trust that takes. So how did that come to be?
Somehow I didn't feel like it was. I think I was sort of naive when I agreed to do this. I knew Lisa's work. I knew her from her Five Lesbian Brothers days. I hadn't seen her own more recent autobiographical performances, like Well and 2.5 Minute Ride. I soon read those and saw some performances, and I felt like, oh my God, this she's perfect. I would have trust her with this real. But I don't know how it was possible to turn my book into a musical. I mean, not only is it a graphic book, but it's just a really, it doesn't really have a plot. It's almost like a book of essays. Nothing really happens in it, except that my father dies. And I give that away at the beginning of the book. So it's an odd narrative to monetize. And I also agreed to the musical because I don't I didn't know anything or really care very much for musicals to be honest. So I felt like I didn't. It wasn't hard for me to give up creative control because I knew nothing about this form. If it had been a movie, I might have felt like I would like to have a say in the screenplay or what decisions get made. But the musical, I knew I would just be no use at all, and so I was happy to let go of control.
Did Lisa Crone approach you?
Fortunately, sorry, what?
Did Lisa Crone approach you with this project?
Yes. Before she'd really done much work on it, so I said yes, and it was a couple of years after that I really saw anything. It took a long time for the musical to take shape, just as it took the book a long time to take shape.
And how did it feel to when you first saw your life represented in this musical theater?
Well, my first experience of it was not seeing it at all, but just hearing a recording that they had made at a workshop, and it was stunning. It was really very moving. I felt just kind of ripped open. It was amazing to hear the voices of my family, in a way that sounded really accurate and authentic to me, to hear these people singing as my parents, to hear like myself as a child, myself as a young woman, to hear all these people brought to life. It was really it was amazing.
And I read that your mother passed away before it opened, but did she have any reactions to the fact that this story that had been hard for her, that became a book, was now going to be on the musical theater stage?
Yeah, she had very, very mixed feelings about it. She knew that the play was happening. I sent her a soundtrack that I had listened to, as well as the script at some point, and warned her that it might be intense to listen to this. And I don't know if she ever listened to it. If she did, she never told me about it. And I kind of suspect that she didn't want to experience it. I think it would have been painful, not just in the way it was sort of painful for me in a cathartic way, but I think painful for her just to see her life from someone else's perspective. That's always sort of unpleasant, whether it's accurate or not. But the one thing my mother did say to me about the play was, well, I'll be anxious to see the reviews. She read the New York Times every day, like front to back, and especially the theater reviews. So I'm not sure if she would have been pleased or dismayed to see the incredible raves that the play did end up getting. But there you have it.
I've just finished reading Are You My Mother, so it's very fresh in my mind. And I feel like I have just audited a course in psychoanalysis with a dose of Virginia Woolf thrown in, and it was not what I expected. I'm curious how you came to that approach, and also, the choice to reveal conversations in therapy that most of us feel like, I can say these things to my analyst or my counselor because I know they'll never end up anywhere. And you chose to be very revealing about therapy you did in your 20s and in your 40s. So how did that come to be, like, kind of the structure through which you told this story about your relationship with your mom in Are You My Mother?
Yes. I feel like that whole project is a massive exercise in avoidance of my mother's judgment. I feel like, it was challenging to write a book while she was alive, knowing she was going to see it. And I tried not to let that inhibit me too much, but I think on a deep structural level it did. It's a very kind of elaborate book. It doesn't a simple story, and I wish it did. I felt like when I wrote Fun Home, this process that I eventually hit on, which was allowing myself to make all these digressions and jump around in time and make associations or literary allusions. And it worked in Fun Home. A coherent narrative did emerge out of that stuff. And I feel, as a memoirist, as someone working with the facts, with the things that really happen in life, I like the idea that there is that a narrative can emerge from this chaos if you let it. And I hope that process would work in the book about my mother, but I don't think it quite did. I think I somehow got in the way of that process because I was just, I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about that book. I haven't quite sorted them out. And I haven't looked at it in a while. It's like I'm kind of afraid of that book.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear that, given how extremely confessional about, your own process of coming to terms with your family and particularly relationship with your mother. So thanks for sharing the journey with us.
It's funny too, because my mother was a great reader and did some writing herself, and she felt very strongly that confessional writing was bad writing. So I was, in a way, trying to salvage that genre or justify it, or there were just so many different struggles going on in that book. I think it's a little caught up in those.
Well, without trying to be, your analyst, I would say that it is an interesting choice to have as your chosen medium a genre that your mother particularly disdained.
Yeah, I don't think that was an accident.
But you've certainly, by going deeply personal, I think that's why, even though not everyone relates to the particulars, both works have been so, people have had such a strong response. I know we're almost out of time, so I do want to ask, do you have a favorite or one or two favorite songs from the cast recording of Fun Home?
I love all of the songs. Telephone Wire is kind of a favorite, I guess.
That's one of my favorites too. There's something about that image that you give about sitting and saying, but when this happens, I'll finally say something. Many of us have experienced that silence in families.
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing.
Telephone wire, run and run. Telephone wire, sundown on the creek. Partly frozen, partly flowing. Must be windy, trees are bending. Junction 50, field needs mowing. Feels like the car is floating. Say something, talk to him. Say something, anything. At the light, at the light, at the light, at the light. At the light, at the light, at the light, at the light. Like you could say. So how does it feel to know that you and I are both...
Hey.
Yeah?
Where do you want to go?
Oh, I don't know.
I know a bar. It's kind of hidden away. Seedy club for folks like, well, could be fun.
But Dad, I'm not 21.
Yeah, right.
Telephone wire, long black line. Telephone wire, finely threaded sky. There's the pond where I went wading. There's a sign for Sugar Valley. On the mountain, light is fading. I go back to school tomorrow. Say something, talk to him. Say something, anything. At the light, at the light, at the light, at the light. At the light, at the light, at the light, at the light. Doesn't matter what you say, just make the eyes go away.
There was a boy in college, my first year there. Norris Jones. He had black wavy hair. Norris Jones. Where is he now? 14 years old. In Swenson's barn. It was cold. Lots of boys messed around, you know. For them, it was a game they outgrew. But I always knew.
Dad, me too, since like 5, I guess. I prefer to wear boy shirts and pants. I felt absurd in a dress. I really tried to deny my feelings for girls, but I was like you. Dad, me too.
Norris Jones.
Dad,
Norris Jones.
Dad.
Hey, did I mention that new project I've taken on? Oh, you've seen it out. An old house out on Route 150. Oh, it's been standing out there empty 40, 50 years at least.
Telephone wire, stop too fast. Telephone wire, make this not the past. This car ride, this is where it has to happen. There must be some other chances. There's a moment I'm forgetting where you tell me you see me. Say something, talk to me. Say something, anything. At the light, at the light. This can't be our last.
Well, that was fun. Oh, it's earlier than I thought. Are you coming in?
Telephone wire. That was our last night.
You know, for I think lesbians of all ages, but I think particularly lesbians of a certain age, I'm 51, to see the reflection of changing my major to Joan, like this, you just the memory of that first love of another woman and how that's expressed there, and the ring of keys of that many of us have had, you know, that memory of, oh yeah, that's what it was like the first time I saw a woman that was different and I felt different. Those two are just, I think, such a contribution to lesbian culture.
Oh my God, yeah. It's incredible. I can't even believe, I still can't quite believe that it's happening. But it's happening every night. It's going to happen tonight. 8 o'clock.
And 2 shows on Saturday, I bet, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I encourage our listeners, since we air in the Philadelphia area, it's very close, get to New York and see Fun Home if you can, and check out Alison Bechdel's 2 memoirs, Fun Home and Are You My Mother? And you can still learn all about the strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, at dykestowatchoutfor.com. Alison Bechdel, thank you so much for your work, and thanks for taking time to speak to us on Amazon Country.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for your work.
You didn't notice her at first, but I saw her the moment she walked in. She was a delivery woman. She came in with a handcart full of packages. She was an old school butch.
Someone just came in the door, like no one I ever saw before. I feel I don't know where you came from. I wish I did. I feel so dumb. I feel your swagger and your bearing and just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys. Oh, your ring of keys. I thought it was supposed to be wrong, but you seem okay with being strong. I want to very conceited to say, but I think we're like in a certain way. Your swagger and your bearing at just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys, oh, your ring of keys. Do you feel my heart saying hi? In this whole luncheonette, why am I the only one who sees you're beautiful? No, I mean handsome. Your swagger and your bearing and just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys, oh, your ring of keys. I know you. I know you. I know you.
I don't care about pride. I don't care, I wanna call you. I don't care, I've gone off the rails. I'm crazy, falling for you. Well, I promised him I would never stray, but I'm thinking about you every day. Now I'm standing here outside your door. I just can't fight this anymore. Love is love. It takes a hold. It'll change your life, make you lose control. You can't explain the things it does, but hard to hold. And love is love. I never said I was a slave. I never said I'd be a saint. I never say I didn't try to fight against my human nature. So let the past and future fall away. I will worship these wounds every day. Yeah, the cuts that bleed from my mistakes couldn't keep my heart from giving way. And love is love. It takes a hold. It'll change your life, make you lose control. You can't explain the things it does, but hard to hold. And love is love. And love is love.
It's a Sunday night here at WXPN, and a question that's been asked more and more over the past decade or so is, what is it like to have a transgender parent or even a transgender spouse? And how can a family stay together in face of such a significant change? These are questions that were unheard of 20, 30 years ago, but now more and more families are addressing these questions, and the conversations are pretty interesting. Filmmaker Sharon Shattuck answers all these questions in a new documentary called From This Day Forward. It is a deeply intimate, honest, and inspiring feature documentary about her experiences as the daughter of a transgender father and a mother who remained committed to the marriage. Now, the love in From This Day Forward is simultaneously unusual and traditional. Sharon tells the story from the beginning, which she marks as the moment that her sister found a picture of their dad dressed in women's clothing, and when they asked their mother why is dad dressed like grandma, they didn't have long time to wait for the answer. Well, neither do we. Joining us by telephone to talk a little bit about the documentary and about the story itself, Tricia Shitwood. Hi there, Tricia. How are you?
I'm well, Robert.
Thank you, first of all, for joining us tonight to chat a little bit about this documentary. When you flash back on your life and you look at that first moment when your daughter and you finally came to conversation about who you were, and now you fast forward to now, October 2016, when the whole world will know who you are, that has to be an amazing roller coaster.
It has been, and not blithely dealt with. We spent a lot of time concerned with the ramifications of being so out. The film did gradually change its emphasis and ultimately ended up being about our family, which caused us some angst. But we started seeing some of the rough clips and decided that it was Sharon's art form and that we should encourage that.
Let's begin way at the beginning and talk a little bit about your own life growing up. You grew up in Denver, Colorado area?
I did.
When you were a child, let's talk a little bit about that moment when you started to realize that things weren't exactly as others wanted them to be in your world.
I had a girlfriend who lived down the block, and I would enjoy spending my my mornings and afternoons with her. And she had dolls. I played with the dolls and enjoyed her company. And her father, who was in the military in Colorado Springs, was not that pleased with having me at their house playing with his daughter. And at one point, early on, when we were living in Westminster, because I was born in Denver, but we moved to Westminster, and my parents informed me that one of their closest friends had had a baby and we were going to go visit. And at 4, I climbed up onto the crib, holding the rail, looked over the top of the rail and looked down into the crib and saw this child. It's the first baby I'd seen, and she was born and given the name Tricia, and I had a longing right then and there to be named Tricia and wished that I had been born ago.
And you know, there are so many friends of mine who are transgender who can relate to those stories, and they can go back to their early childhood and find those first gems, those first moments that shine for them, where a light finally goes off, and it really takes you back to as young as you said, 3, 4 years old, when you really start to see where your path should be. Mm-hmm. I guess obviously you followed tradition, and you met Marcia, who you dated, I guess, was that teenage years or after you got out of high school?
Well out of high school, and I had 5 years of education in Detroit at Wayne State, and then I transferred to Michigan State, where Marcia was living in the same building that I was renting in. In terms of my relationship with Marcia, I made a decision that this was a person who even on the first date, I knew that there was something special, and I didn't want to mess this up, and I decided that I could easily mess our relationship up if I kept my desire to express my femininity a secret. And so on our second date together, evening together, I informed her that at the time I was cross-dressing quietly in the privacy of my own closet and apartment. Mm-hmm. And And she didn't run away. She didn't barge out the door. And she stayed with me. And I thought, well, that's something right there.
Yeah.
And having gotten that off my chest, then that way she knew about it. And but our relationship had to evolve because ultimately I had to begin to live it. And I found myself going out more surreptitiously under the cover of darkness.
Yes.
So that's just the way it was back then.
Now, obviously, you married, had 2 children?
Exactly, 2 daughters.
And the moment that I talked about at the beginning of the chat where Sharon and her sister uncovered this photograph of you, that obviously is the beginning of the next chapter of your family's dynamic. Had you and Marcia talked about what do we do when that moment comes up?
We had discussed this, and we were doing our best to shield our daughters from that moment for as long as we could.
How old was Sharon at the time?
I'm going to say that she was nearly 6.
Okay. So definitely younger than you would have wanted at that point.
Yes. But there is kind of an interceding chapter where I was so depressed as a closeted transgender person that I was developing my suicidal plan, and I decided it would be best if I called a hotline before I actually enacted, and was surprised to this is pre-internet as far as I was concerned. I was surprised to find that in the Chicago area there were 2 support groups for transvestites, transgendered people, transsexuals, and I didn't know this, and they put me in contact with these groups, and simply beginning to go to these groups and meeting others like myself was an eye-opener, because I know that this just sounds ridiculous nowadays, but I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. As someone who is in the same basic generation, you and I think a younger generation doesn't appreciate how easy, and I use that term loosely, but how easy it is to have access to information today. When you look back 20, 30 years or so ago, I remember the gay switchboard in Philadelphia was the only gay thing listed in the white pages here in Philadelphia, and basically the majority of the people that they talked with were suicidal. They were basically a crisis hotline. That morphed into now a network of helping people with everything from legal issues to social issues. But every older gay and lesbian transgender person has a moment when they can look back and say that was the first time they realized they weren't in it by themselves.
Yes.
And I don't dismiss the younger community, because I know that it's a personal issue for everyone. But the way society has been today, no matter, you have to live under a rock if you really feel like you're the only one at this point. Just because at the saturation point with media has brought the fact that you aren't alone. Whether you still feel like you're alone as an individual, but you at least know there's other people out there besides yourself, and that's something that we didn't have growing up. So I can appreciate it, and I definitely don't. It doesn't sound weird to me at all.
It's a joy to know that this information is available to us, and it's glorious to see young people who are coming out and living their lives now genuinely. But at the time, for me to find any information out about transgender or gay lesbian issues, I had to give libraries specific information about books that I wanted, because many libraries didn't have those books, but I discovered that they could find them somewhere in the network and deliver them to my library, which meant that I had to become out to some people in the library who were handling my requests for books and information, and I began doing my research and my reading. So ultimately, when we as a family started going to family therapy, I confronted a lot of therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists who didn't know as much about transgender issues as I did, or so I'd like to pat myself on the back.
Well, as you should. Now, I want to fast forward for a second, and then we'll come back to this point. When you look at the society and the culture today, and the fact that transgender, even the word transgender, is said by more people than probably ever was said back in the 1970s. the dialogue, whether it's positive or negative around transgender issues, from issues like Caitlyn Jenner, of course, getting such media attention over the past couple of years, down to the issues in North Carolina with transgender and the restroom situation. It's just amazing to me, at least, how much it is in the forefront of a discussion, positive and negative, but it's being discussed, which is something I think what you're talking about, especially back then. These were issues that weren't even talked about. They weren't even, you couldn't find resources about it. And now you have a situation where it's discussed, at least, it's out in the open in that sense. That has to make you feel a little bit relieved for the next generation as well.
And what we do and what I'm doing today is an effort at making it a little easier for future generations. And so just being out, but and knowing that the Native Americans refer to Kima, or having your face in the wind. I guess someone has to be out in front. There have been forerunners in our movement. It's for all of their efforts, all of our efforts combined, to make it easier for the next generation to come forth and to live their lives freely and genuinely.
I agree. So let's travel back where we were again and pick up where we left off. Commitment is important, and you and Marcia at one point decided to separate, but there was no divorce, and instead you decided to try to get help and bring things together. Talk about that experience. Why, first of all, the separation, and then also why deciding not to divorce and instead let's make it work?
I wanted all along to maintain my relationship with Marcia and my children, and knew that I would be in sad shape if everything were to crumble and crash down upon me, and I thought for sure that, and this is selfish of me, but that would probably put me over the edge. And I decided that if I needed to walk on the thin ice of a fragile family, I would. But I also realized that because my transition was still evolving and I was spending more and more time expressing my femininity and being out, I realized that my family was now transitioning and that they were busy trying to adjust to this new persona that I was presenting, and that I had to be cautious and gentle with them. So I conferred with my daughters and Marcia, and I really took whatever criticisms or suggestions to heart. My own maturation was evolving, so when I first came out, even though I was like 27 years old, I felt like I was 18 and gorgeous, and I had to adjust to what was more appropriate social presentation that was expected of me by both my family and possibly society. And so ultimately I came around.
In the midst of this whole story, which is detailed in a wonderful feature documentary that the world will check out, again, it's called From This Day Forward. It's by filmmaker Sharon Shattuck, who is the daughter of Trisha, who we're speaking with right now, part of the POV Point of View series. In that tale, your life story as to how things developed, as we got closer and closer, as Sharon grew up, then came the issue of her getting married.
It was, that's a joyous time in most families' lives. But I had told Sharon many years earlier that I had hoped that by that point the family would be accepting of me and I would be able to wear a gown at the wedding. And I don't want to don't want to reveal too much, but there was a lot of discussion that went on about that decision.
When Sharon first came to you and to Marcia with the idea of doing this documentary From This Day Forward, what was your initial reaction? I know obviously you felt the importance of telling your story, but at the same time you're talking about your personal life with your family.
And that entailed making sure that all four of us were accepting of this and willing to pursue it to the end. It was 5 years of nearly 5 years of filming that occurred, and during that time there were interviews that were made that were semi-traumatic, Among Us. And Marcia was reluctant. She thought, well, go ahead, let it be about Trish, and then my youngest felt that she had some issues with me, but over time we've really patched ourselves up, because time really does heal many wounds, and we all matured, but at the time it was still a little rocky.
Now, of course, the next question I'm going to ask is going to be hard to answer only because of the bias of a parent and a daughter, but do you feel that the filmmaker Sharon, not the daughter Sharon, but the filmmaker Sharon captured your family in a proper way?
I do. Mm-hmm. She was intimately involved with all aspects of the family, and we didn't feel like her constant filming was an intrusion. We accepted her presence. I will say, when she began filming, the camera was small, and as she continued filming, the cameras got larger, and then the boom mic, and then there's the grip, somebody holding the boom mic, and
all of a sudden other people start showing up.
Right, and then we start talking among Marcia, and I start saying, this looks like it's going to be a bigger deal. And like so many parents, we think when our kids say, I'm going to make a film about our family, we go, oh, sure you are. Good.
That's nice.
That's nice. Good luck with that.
And next thing you know, you see a team come in.
But she did it.
And that has to be rewarding. That alone has to be rewarding, especially for you, Trish, because you look back at that experience where you were face-to-face with your 6-year-old trying to explain in a 6-year-old way what the situation was, and now you fast forward to where she took it upon herself to tell the world about her story. That has to be rewarding for you.
I'm very proud of her and her accomplishments, but she has a great team, and we've become big fans of editors. They did a great job collectively.
Especially with 5 years worth of footage.
Right, and I feel so sorry for Freddie, because he looked at each one of the clips, and me, I'm like Chatty Cathy, and he somehow managed to create these segues and junctions between takes that makes the film flow so meditatively and so beautifully.
And of course, now Marcia can always say to you, no, Trish, don't let me get Freddie.
Right.
Don't make me call Freddie on you again.
Well, and the whole team was a great bunch of people to work with.
I also think it's important, and again, a lot of people today will take this for granted, but to be able to have a documentary on public television that looks candidly and lovingly at a family dealing with an issue that, a decade or two earlier would not have been discussed at all on television. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
And high time, Robert.
Again, the documentary is called From This Day Forward, filmmaker Sharon Shattuck's production. Are you going to watch it on television? I'm sure you've seen it by now, but are you
yes, I will.
Oh, cool. So and I'm correct in stating that you've already seen it, though, right?
A multitude of times. For me, I get to see my family, because sometimes I'll be away at a film festival somewhere, and there's my family, plus my cat and my dog have both passed in the interim.
So they're still in film.
Yeah.
I love that.
Can I put in a plug for Psychology Today, October issue?
Please, go right ahead. Tell me about it.
There's an article in there that has to do with what happens when your partner is transgender, and features 4 different couples, of whom Marcia and I are one. It's well written.
And that's the October edition
of Psychology Today.
Perfect. I know, and I speak on behalf of so many people who are supportive of the transgender issues. I think that it's wonderful that you took the time and courage to speak out when you did, and of course continue to speak out now with this documentary and interviews and such. And please send our love to Sharon and everyone else in the family.
We will.
can call it a sin, but love always wins. You feel the pressures of the world telling you